So, in my sphere of booktube, my little corner or my algorithm, I see a lot of really great books, but I would still say that there are some books that I think are just criminally underrated and underhyped that we should be talking about more. And so I've decided that in today's video, I'm going to talk about them. I have, I think, 7 books to talk about. And most of them are like fantasy, literary, and a little bit of horror. And then I have one, which I guess it's literary. It's like a weird, bizarre girl kind of book. So I hope that this list includes at least one book that might be interesting to you. The first book I want to talk about is called Saturnalia. So in it we follow Nina. She is living in Philadelphia and making a living by fortune telling using her tarot cards. That is until one day an old friend calls in a favor, which requires her to be pulled back into a secret society that she has left in the past on the very night of the biggest holiday in this alternate Philadelphia called Saturnalia. This includes like a solstice, masquerade, lots of like dark alchemical sort of magic, debauchery, danger, all of the good stuff. So she is weaving between all of the people and all of these secrets and events on this one dangerous night when we discover why she left in the first place, what the whole horrible secret is, and hopefully she can get out unscathed. This book is about 250 pages long, and it really reads like a short story because it is so fast paced. You kind of get thrown straight in just like Nina is, and just have to kind of ride along with the ride. I would say this is also one of those books that I kind of think about a lot after reading it and that has really stuck with me, so I even want to do a reread at some point. I would say that there are aspects of this which remind me of Holly Black's, is it called The House of Shadows? Her adult debut. There's aspects which reminds me of like that book anyway, and kind of like a dark academia bend because all of the magic in this world has to do with alchemy. You know, we have homunculi, we have tarot cards, we have a lot of sort of occult stuff, and it's involving secret societies. So what more can you really ask for? I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking with my hands. So if you liked that book by Holly Black, whatever it is, I'll put it on the screen, and even The Secret History, kinda, maybe you want to check this one out. The next book I want to talk about is An Unkindness of Magicians. This is a fantasy thriller set in New York. In this version of New York, there is a lot of magicians, there's magic, and different houses have different kinds of magic, I think. And like whatever house or like major family is in charge. They get all of the power. But that balance of power is disrupted when there is a tournament called The Turning, which shifts it. So whichever person wins this magical competition, their house gets to be the ones that are in charge. This book follows a number of point of views, and I remember them all being good, but the main character that we're most interested in this book is Sydney, and she is from the House of Shadows. This is a very mysterious house. Not a lot of people know about her magic, and it tends to be like kind of darker magic. And so the kind of mystery around Sydney unravels. She's immensely powerful. And then the history around the House of Shadows begins to unravel as we're going through and watching this tournament. And I have to say the way that the magic is described and explored in this book is just real. There's really high costs to the magic. And it just like feels the way you want a book to feel if there's going to be a magical tournament. Like you're seeing people in like gridlock, you're seeing these dazzling spectacles, you're getting magic going terribly wrong. And at the core of it is this tension, who's going to win the turning and what is this kind of mystery that's unfolding about the House of Shadows. I am, as you can probably tell, absolutely obsessed with this book. I would really recommend it to anybody who likes the E. Schwab's Threads of Power. I'm thinking it's the second book where you get like that really epic magical tournament. Like it has kind of a similar feel to that. And it can be read as a standalone, or she just released in 2023, apparently, a sequel, which I have not read, but I am really looking forward to. The third book that I'm excited to tell you guys about, which you might have heard of me talk about before, is The Crane Husband. This is a novella that is actually a retelling of a traditional Japanese like folk myth called The Crane Wife. And in it we're following a Midwestern family. There's a single mom, a teenage daughter who's I think about 15, and a boy, like the youngest child. And we're getting it from the perspective of this teenage daughter. The mother is a tapestry weaver, One day, she brings home a crane. He is like 6 or 7 feet tall, really menacing, and things change. This is magical realism, by the way. Like, there's no mention of like, why is mom now married to a bird? This is go with it, okay? But things begin to change. The mother essentially abandons her children and locks herself in the room working on this one tapestry under the crane's guidance. It's like his masterpiece kind of thing. This forces the 15-year-old daughter to grow up really quickly. I thought that the way this was written was just super beautiful. Like on a prose level, the way that she encapsulates different ideas and explores themes through this story is just incredibly well done. It is an adult book. I don't see why a teenager couldn't read it, to be honest with you. And the characters were just wonderful. It's a really easy book to just read in like an afternoon. So that's The Crane Husband. The next book that I want to tell you guys about is called A Cosmology of Monsters. And this book is essentially about a family which is haunted by monsters. I don't know if haunted is quite the right word, but I'm going to just read to you the brief little blurb on the back of the book because I don't think that I can actually do a better job describing it than this. Noah Turner sees monsters. His father saw them and built a shrine to them with the wandering dark, an immersive horror experience that the whole family operates. His practical mother has caught glimpses of terrors but refuses to believe. She's too focused on keeping the family from falling apart. And his eldest sister, the dramatic and vulnerable Sydney, won't admit to seeing anything but the beckoning glow of the spotlight until it swallows her up. Noah Turner sees monsters, but unlike his family, Noah chooses to let them in. Okay, I would say this is a fairly tame literary horror. Like a lot of the horrible stuff is happening off page. We're focusing a lot on weirdness. There is some sort of taboo stuff going on, as well as this lingering aura of menace and suspense. And if you're like a long-term horror reader, I feel like there's a lot of little homages or Easter eggs. I guess if you are someone who appreciates content warnings, you can check those out, but I don't really remember there being a whole lot of graphic stuff on the page. And I think if you're somebody who enjoys literary, you enjoy sort of a suspenseful read, but you're not a really regular horror reader, this could be one that you might want to check out. The next book that I want to talk about is actually a series. Wait, how many books are there? So there's 4 books in this main series, but then there's a lot of others if you want to read it. I've read the first 4, and that is Written in Red, or The Others series. Okay, so this series is really weird, okay? So it's a bit of a vibey, wholesome, almost cozy feel in one way, but on the other hand, it also is dealing with some very kind of dark elements and things. This is an older book from 2013. Maybe it had its heyday here on booktube, but I don't hear people talking about it, and I kind of feel like they still should. Like if you like cozy fantasy, but you also want something that has kind of higher stakes and that little bit of a dark edge, I honestly feel like you should check this out. So we're following Meg. She is a blood prophet, aka whenever she spills blood, her own blood, she gets a glimpse of the future. And we meet her when she has just escaped from her captors who kept her as a slave so that they could like sell basically cuts to people who wanted to see the future. Okay, so you're seeing like why this is a little bit dark. So when the book starts, she has fled from these people and she is looking to start a new life and is encountering the world outside for the first time. I should say this is set in like alternate America. So she is seeking safety and like refuge and a job in a business district that is exclusively owned and run by the Others. So the Others are paranormal kind of umbrella term for people who are like vampires and shifters and like all kinds of different things. But I think there's kind of an interesting twist on it than just having it like paranormal, and they are definitely not written in a traditional way. Like Anne Bishop is really writing like a werewolf, for instance, who is a main character, as like a different species, and that is like a part of the book. So in book 1, this is where Meg finds a safe space. This is where she finds family and gets a job and spends a lot of time in a bookstore, in a post office, and integrating herself into the world, but also getting to know these others. I feel like this is very cozy, or it's very cozy in the way that I would like it, because the emphasis is really on Meg finding community for the first time. Okay, this is also a fun series if you're looking for something that is paranormal that doesn't really have romance. Like, there is kind of a romance, but there's absolutely no spice. The emphasis is staying on this experience of comfort and safety that people are finding in each other and found family. So that's Written in Red, or the Others series, and I really like it. The next book that I want to talk about is also part of a series. So you're getting a trilogy recommended to you. Lucky you. That is the Winnowing Flame series, where The Ninth Reign is the very first book. And in this, we are following three main characters. One is a witch who has escaped from like a convent. One is an eccentric lady explorer. And then one is a dude that is kind of a vampire who worships trees. I'm doing a horrible job explaining this, just so you know. And particularly the other two are being pulled along by this lady explorer who is convinced that the Juralia, this sort of alien force that absolutely decimated one of the lands, is going to invade again in an event called the Ninth Reign. I don't really know what else to tell you about this. Like, it's a very fun series and it's extremely difficult to be able to like summarize and explain in a coherent few sentences, but I do recommend that you check it out if you're interested in something that is a bit genre bending, because I feel like this book does something that is similar to Gideon the Ninth maybe. It's not written in that fanficky kind of way, which I don't mean as a negative thing, by the way. It's written a lot more like a traditional fantasy, but it has, yeah, that like very genre bending, almost sci-fi elements. There's this thing that's kind of like aliens, but then there's things later that are kind of like dragons. There's a whole pile of stuff going on. It's high fantasy, it's a lot of fun, and there's a little bit of romance. It really comes into play later in the book, so it's definitely a slow burn, but I think that this would appeal actually to a lot of people, despite how bizarre it is. I am pretty sure that this also, unfortunately, does not have a US publisher, which might explain why it is not quite as popular as it should be. But it is definitely worth the effort of trying to get your hands on a copy, because it's, yeah, a fun good time. The next book that I want to chat about is one that I read quite a few years ago. That is The Ghost Bride. This was the author's debut. She's a Malaysian author and she wrote The Night Tiger, but I don't really hear a whole lot of people talking about this one. This is a historical fantasy set in 1890 colonial Malacca. It's about Li Lan, who was born into a very genteel but broke family, so she doesn't have a whole lot of prospects in her life, and especially regarding marriage. One day there comes an offer from a very opulently rich and wealthy family that she just can't turn down, and that is to become the ghost bride to one of the family's sons. This was something that was, I think, quite rarely practiced in some traditional Chinese cultures, where if there is a restless departed spirit, they will marry a girl who is currently living to that spirit to like appease him. This is obviously not super desirable, but it does ensure that she is going to be able to live in comfort and stability for the rest of her life, which is not something to turn your nose up to. So, but she's kind of haunted by her ghostly suitor in her dreams in the realm of the Chinese afterlife, and then during her waking hours, she is haunted by her attraction to the heir of this family's fortune, who's very handsome. But through her experience living there, getting to know the family, and things that she's discovering from the departed son, she is uncovering a very dark secret about this family that she is now married into. And, you know, things kind of come to a head from there. This book, I just remember being incredibly enchanting and absorbing, and I really do think about it a lot. And it's really cool for me, after living in Singapore, to see some things like the Hungry Ghost Festival still being practiced that is mentioned and talked about in this book. So highly recommend, and I believe that this is also made into a TV series. I think it's a Malaysian TV series, but it might be dubbed in English as well. I'm not sure. I haven't watched it, but it's on my to-watch list. The last book that I want to talk about, I am genuinely shocked when I saw that it was rated 3.4 with only 1,000 ratings on Goodreads. That is New Animal by Ella Baxter. This is literary weird girl stuff. We are hanging out with Amelia. Amelia is a cosmetician at her family's mortuary business, and she has a really hard time connecting with her emotions and her lovers. This little problem of hers is really amplified when her mother passes away, and it basically just sends her for a tailspin, and then we follow her through this tailspin of like grief and then self-discovery and sexuality and all of this stuff. It takes us all around the country and kind of ends at like this BDSM club. Like, it's a weird, wild little book. Don't know if I would say that I actually like Amelia as a character, but I definitely like following her and seeing her thoughts and like judging her. Like, not, you know what I mean? I feel like this book should have been one of those things that came up on those Hot Girl Summer, Atessa Moshfegh and Sally Rooney lists. I don't know, did they come up on the same lists? I feel like it's that kind of book for that kind of reader. And I had a lot of fun reading it. I think actually, if anyone in the world has watched or remembers watching the TV show 6 Feet Under, you should just pick up this book. So those are the books that I have to recommend to you guys that I think are just super underhyped. I gave them a little bit of hype, I hope. I hope you heard about something that is new or something came back onto your radar that maybe you forgot. And if you have any underhyped books that you would like to add to the list or that you would like to recommend to me, please leave them in the comments. I love discovering books that are not the top 10 Goodreads awards kind of thing. So thanks so much for watching this video. I hope that you have a great, lovely time, day, wherever you are, and I will see you again next week. Bye!